Yeah. I think that's definitely 100 Thieves' problem is they're not good enough. Like they're like, I mean,
That's it right there. They're just not good enough, bro.
yeah.
Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
What's up, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the All In Podcast. I am the League Dad, and as always, joined by my friends and co-hosts, we've got Kevin, Mitchell, Alistair, and we are here to talk about all things LCS and League of Legends and all of that good stuff. So happy to see you guys again and discuss everything that's happened. I know we were talking a lot during the games in Discord, but it was like week 8 didn't even happen because through all our predictions and all the streaks that we saw and all the downtrends that seem to be happening in the teams, well, this past weekend in the first round seemingly just erased all of that, and we kind of were just left with our top 4. So, 100 Thieves, CLG making their exits. I think most smart people probably thought that would be the case, but I thought 100 Thieves was going to go. Mitchell, you thought 100 Thieves was going to go, and so
I don't know what you're talking about.
We have the recording to verify. So, but let's just start. I guess let's start there because I think 100 Thieves. We'll start with the teams that are eliminated because obviously they're done. So kind of a wrap up for them. But 100 Thieves, I know at least I thought they were going to do well. I know maybe some people weren't as hopeful, but let's start there. What were your thoughts on them? I mean, getting 3-0'd by FlyQuest, and then against Golden Guardians going to Game 5, but really just looking a hot mess, man. Really from their games prior. So, what'd you guys think of 100 Thieves? Your thoughts on their exit?
My quick thoughts were Ablazeolive actually played quite well. Like, despite how it ended, I think he showed that he is at least top 3, top 4, like minimum. He was very solid. He was honestly the win con for over half the games in my mind, but he did also lose a lot of games because flashes and the team just didn't peel for him very well. So it's partially him, partially the team. When you're an AD carry man, it's just very hard to play if your team doesn't play for you. However, all that to say, I was right about 100 Thieves, guys. Their streak was mostly against bad teams. Actually, in fact, someone in our Discord named Ailes or Alice, Ailes, he said that essentially their record against bottom teams was they were 0-7 against C9 FlyQuest throughout the season and 3-10 versus C9 FlyQuest, CLG, and EG. So, like, it's interesting that they had such a bad record against the best teams who were mostly going to be playing against in playoffs, but it was almost never brought up during the broadcast. Like,
true.
Everyone was naysaying on GGS when they were on a 7-game win streak, but it never happened or very rarely happened for 100 Thieves.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that was brought up. I actually didn't even realize it. I think it was very interesting. So.
Yeah, the 100 Thieves situation, I mean, so many things to say. I think the first thing I'll tackle is, like, the weird drafting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That was so weird, man. Like, Xin Zhao's coming out the woodworks. This champ's not good. I think that's pretty obvious for most people. This champ's not very good at all. I mean, he falls into a specific theme, right, where he's got a ton of early prio. He's really good at ganking, really good at dueling. So he can get, like, a lot of lane pressure for you, and he can snowball a lane really ahead. But the problem with Xin Zhao right now compared to, like, when he was last meta, like, 2 years ago, like, you go Gordrinker Conqueror, and you kind of end up in the situation where, like, you don't do a lot of damage, and you're not really that tanky. So the champ's just not that great, but I get the idea of why he's being picked. And also, I get the feeling that Closer he didn't have enough time to, like, add another champion to his champ pool, I guess. So he just picked, like, the easiest champion that could fit in there, Xin Zhao. Just also a funny thing for Xin Zhao, I've played him a lot, is, like, when you go Gordrinker, you do this thing where you E in, and then you kind of have to ulti people away kind of immediately, or you get CC'd and you die if you don't ulti. But then everyone's far away from you, so you don't ever get Gordrinker value off. So I personally think the build just, like, is anti-synergistic with this kit. It's kind of bad. And if you're going to play Xin Zhao because your champion pool is pinched, I mean, it's not just Closer, right? Spica played it earlier. It's being played in LPL, LCK. It got played in LEC a little bit. So it's not like a completely random pick. But I do think you should just, like, go full damage, and you should just bank on snowballing really hard and being a glass cannon one shot, go Halo Blades or something, because, God, that was painful to watch them just run back Xin Zhao, like, 5 times or something ridiculous. It was too much.
They probably would have, but they lost in 3 games against FlyQuest.
Yeah.
Luckily, they learned against who was it, Golden Guardians, not to pick him. But
But then they played it, and I was like,
I
what
know.
is happening?
That's true. But the thing is like I think that was so. I want to bring that up is closers picks here, and maybe just the picks in general. Obviously, their way to win was through double lift. They were gonna put all their eggs in the basket. Even against Golden Guardians, Bjergsen was picking Zillion. I guess the case was really to ult closer when he went in, but it just didn't seem like he was able to be effective. I mean, he picked Vi a few times, but Vi hasn't been his champ. It hasn't been his champ this whole split. If he didn't get the Lee Sin or the Viego, it really. I mean, Wukong, okay, yes, but again, it felt like teams were just really able to pick on his champion pool, and he wasn't able to get as impactful of a pick as they would like. And the scary thing is that Bjergsen getting Zillion twice, and them not even being able to utilize that, whether it's protect the double lift strat or protect the closer strat. I just felt that you were doomed if you were protecting closer and leaving double lift. I guess one of the games he was on Zeri, so Zeri does have kind of a built-in escape there. But when you're playing Jinx, like you have to let that Jinx survive. And I felt like against FlyQuest, kudos to Impact on Cassante. He was finding double lift every single time. And I was just
he
like
finding him, or was Doublelift walking into melee range?
I mean, maybe. But as Jinx, you can't really, to all of that to say is that Jinx doesn't have great escapes, and you do have to rely heavily on your team to peel for you. And if Cassante can zone you out like that, where you can't even get in auto range, then it's a tough way either way. Either you stay out and do nothing, or you just get ulted by Cassante. And credit to both. Maybe it's a little bit of both. But talk a little bit about closers picks and maybe who you're going to point the finger at, because although Doublelift played well, it should be more of a team thing that they couldn't find any other ways to win. Obviously, playing so one-dimensional for so long, teams are going to figure it out. They obviously did, and shut down 100 Thieves so easily. So give me your thoughts on who would you blame, and et cetera, et cetera.
I actually noticed something from this draft. It's like when they, as we mentioned last week, if they double ban closer, they might get a lot of good results and destroy.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we expected. It's kind of crazy that you can really just ban 2 or maybe 3, but usually 2 of one person's characters, and then the team just can't use those draft resources anywhere. The thing I would blame, it might just be a Bjergsen problem, guys. Like, if you look at it, Doublelift played 6 games of Jinx in this playoffs. Do you know what that reminds me of? Last year, when Hansama couldn't play anymore, for some reason, he just looked really bad as the AD carry for a Bjergsen team and played a bunch of Jinx and Seraphine. So, like, Doublelift went 1-5 on Jinx. And I don't think he was necessarily the problem. I told you that he was strong, right? But it was very strange that he couldn't just pick other things. It was almost like they had to have him play that because they couldn't carry from mid jungle. Mm-hmm. So it's not just a Bjergsen problem, but it's also like what happens to junglers that play with him, and then that pigeonholes the AD carry, and then it's like, okay, what's the rookie top laner supposed to do with all that, with all these resources that he now doesn't have access to?
Right.
I mean, I think it's a solo lane problem in general. I think Tenacity is also a problem because it feels pretty established that he can kind of only really play tanks, especially into Impact. I mean, I think in like a skill matchup, Impact's just gonna smack him. But I definitely agree with the Bjergsen thing. It's like closer just does not feel as good as we're used to seeing him, and you're forcing Doublelift to play these 1v9 hyper carries, and you're playing very one-dimensional team comps, where it's like, oh, we just don't get hard smurfed on bot lane, and we just don't lose the game. It is pretty much how it feels like playing against 100 Thieves in these series. Like, the games where 100 Thieves win, Doublelift is, he's like 12-0, right? He's hard carrying these games, like 12-0 on Zeri and 9-1 on Jinx. Every other game, he did, like, fine. He didn't do amazing, he didn't do terrible. Obviously, there's mistakes, but I 100% think it is Bjergsen draft, like, causing issues for the team. Because, like, yeah, Zictor's fine, but I just don't think, I think he's warping the game with how he just wants to play, because it's not Season 6 anymore.
Yeah, I had a pretty different take. I feel like Bjergsen was, I don't know, he was pretty inoffensive, as in, like, he didn't do much, but he didn't really cause any problems. Obviously playstyle could fall like could do something from behind the scenes. Like the main thing I had a problem with, unfortunately, is like I really don't want to point my fingers at the rookies, but I felt like Buzio was like, to me, he was the biggest problem. He couldn't land anything on Thresh. He was really couldn't land any hooks, and his flays were super like hit or miss. And he had some pretty poor positioning. There was never any good lanterns. Like he was always kind of too close to Doublelift, or just actually on top of him, or late with the lanterns. If you think back to Game 2 of FlyQuest versus 100 Thieves, it's like 100 Thieves, they got Dragon Soul, they got Baron, they got 5k gold lead, right? And they're pushing in to the bot lane inhib of FlyQuest.
Yeah.
And then Spica goes on like the really long flank, right? He actually walks over a ward. They see him the entire time, and then Closer is there to intercept him. You know what Closer does? He third Q knocks up Wukong's clone.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's bad. And then he walks past Buzio, and Buzio whiffs his flay, and then whiffs his hook. And then Sion is charging a full Q onto Zeri, who's not even close to Doublelift, right? And then Bjergsen's actually in an even deeper, worse position than Doublelift is in the fight, and they both stopwatch before using any of their abilities. Like, that's one of those fights where if they just stood their ground and fought, like, they would have killed like 3 or 4 of them, because FlyQuest was super, super low after that. And it was like such a good engage, right? But they were so far behind Ocean Soul. I mean, 100 Thieves, if they just landed any of their stuff in that fight, they would have killed a ton of them. They wouldn't have lost Elder Dragon, like gold bounties and all that stuff. So when I think Buzio played like 5 games of Thresh, 4 or 5 games of Thresh. They all looked really rough. Like it really felt like he needed to be on a champion that had to engage. So like Rakan was getting banned from him, right? But then also I feel like he played that one game of Blitzcrank and he absolutely smurfed it so hard. And then they put him back on the Thresh and he's super useless game 5. He doesn't land anything at all. And honestly, when I think of the comps, like Jinx Thresh, it should be really hard for Wukong to get onto the Jinx. You got traps, you got Flay, you got Lantern. Like you can even opt into Gale Force. Like the fact that Doublelift was actually getting caught out in these is just like such a huge problem, because I don't think the draft was even that bad. It was super playable, but they could not execute on it, and they kept playing it over and over again. So yeah, unfortunately, the Thresh is a big part of that comp, and he could not perform. So
yeah, I mean, I think there seems to be a lot of issues that I think were there. But as you mentioned, they were there, and even on that win streak, you know, maybe I was caught up in a little, you know, cloud 9 hopium for 100 Thieves and my boomers. But you know, when you look at it objectively, you're right. Ailes pointed it out that like they weren't playing good teams. They were playing their comfort picks, their style. But honestly, like as evident here, it was so easy to pick apart, and I'm worried for them if they don't make any either roster changes or even playstyle changes, because this way of playing was kind of they were trying to make a last-ditch effort to make it into playoffs, which they did. But obviously, you're not going to go anywhere with this type of play style and just trying to go with this one-dimensional play. I think there's so much they have to do to fix this.
I kind of disagree with something like that. Oh, sorry, that might have been me making some background noise. I was fidgeting.
It was you. I was wondering what that was. I was like,
yeah, that's my bad. I'm fidgeting. I had a lot of coffee this morning.
All good.
Okay, I wanted to comment. Okay, so their end of the season run where they went 7-0, they were playing Xayah and Kai'Sa almost exclusively. I think they had one Jinx game thrown in there. And the difference between those is those have a lot of self-peel. He doesn't actually have to rely on his team to like peel him. And then his teammates are actually playing champions that have they do things on their own. Like Rakan, Nautilus, they can like get around and do stuff on their own, right? Same with like Bjergsen on Lissandra too. Didn't see any of that being played at all in the playoffs. So I don't actually think that. I think the regular season success is in a completely different play style than what they opted into during playoffs. Because when they went to playoffs, they played a lot of kite back comps, like Jinx Thresh. They want people to come into them and they can kite them, right? They're doing a bunch of like lane swap shenanigans, basically using like Xin Zhao as an early game jungler to pressure bot lane so that they have all this priority and tempo for the Jinx Thresh. And then they go around and they take plates, they take Rift Herald, they take dragons, and then they have like a 25-minute soul, right? Like that was honestly completely different from what they're doing in the regular season. So I do like agree it was against worse opponents, but I mean, I think they completely switched gears when they got to playoffs.
Well, I think
So
also like, and I might be remembering, like I don't have that good of a longer term memory, but it does
right,
seem like when they don't get Rakan, they don't pick Zaya, as if like that needs to be their pairing
right,
with it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so every game this playoffs, they just ban Rakan, and Double Lift is for whatever reason saying, okay, no Zaya. It seems like they have their predetermined duos. You know, this is not just them, but you know, Jinx
yeah.
Thresh or Zeri Lulu. You know, that's like typically going to be that. And my concern is not necessarily his champ pool, and I do agree that helps if he has some kind of self peel. But I think the fact that they're just depending on Double Lift, like he is good to carry, but I don't think the rest of the team around him is good enough to play that way. You know, we talked about the different champion pools, and if you don't have any pressure anywhere else, like if Closer can't get pressure, I mean, he was able to get pressure in the regular season because some of those picks were still coming through when the meta changed, but he wasn't able to here. And so therefore, there's no pressure point except in the bot lane. I think even Golden Guardians was saying that Licorice was like, essentially, I don't need to worry about top lane because, you know, I can just free farm and play aggressive because Closer's never going to come up here. We know they are going to play through bot and just be bot. And that's why I think one game he got Gwen, was it? Because he was basically saying, like, look, Closer's never going to come here. I could just, you know, be fine and it'll be all good. And so I do think that's a problem if they're banking everything on that. I will say I heard on the dive that earlier it did seem like they were trying to play through Tenacity because I think Tenacity is supposedly, you know, supposed to be unleashed on more carry type champions. Obviously, that
Yeah,
didn't
that's his
happen.
champ pool and like
Right,
Catman
but
stuff. Yeah.
when he had leads in the regular season, it didn't seem to translate well, and it seemed like they made a team shift to kind of, okay, scrap that. You're going to play tanks, weak side, and we're just going to let Double Lift carry.
Yep.
And
He's not
I
the
don't.
only one.
But
Double
see,
suffered.
but here's the philosophical like coaching point, I guess. You know, because we talked about people like Ablazeolive. I know this is different, but you know, our rookies. Do we give them a chance to be like, okay, it hasn't been working, but if we're going to develop you, you know, the only way to get better is to get these reps in, or are we just going to default and go back to, you know, what can win games here and now, which is Double Lift, right? But in the playoffs or in the long run, it doesn't help develop Buzio. Like, yeah, he might get experience on these weak side champs, but I mean, if you don't let him thrive or get better as a laner, then you're really not creating any pressure there. And so in the long term, you're always going to have to play through Double Lift or Closer if he's not getting banned.
What my thought is that they need to like figure the system out for rookie bringing up. I only think Cloud9 does it correctly.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you think about it, like, okay, one example of like a team maybe looking into it is when Tacto came onto the scene. They basically just played around him, and he looked like a star, and he was really good, and that was fine. But they kept upselling him, like they're like, he's the next Double If. He's the next. I'm like, no, you guys know his issues in scrims. You even see some of it in his rookie season. You got to make sure they have a stable foundation. One example that Cloud9 did really well, actually, they have so many examples, like Blabber, for example. He had so many flaws, but they did like make sure to temper expectations. They let Senscare sub in, right? So he could be comfortable. And then even Fudge, he wasn't
Right.
super hyped up. He gave himself hype, to be fair. But
Yeah.
for the org, they were like, yeah, I mean, he's developing. They didn't say like he's the best top laner ever, right? And he started from kind of so-so, kind of a bad opening, honestly. He was kind of memed on, right? He was kind of like Fake God 2.0 or Fake God's prototype. And then he became better and better over the seasons. We almost never see that with rookies on other teams. I think Jojo Pion's like the only example I can think of that wasn't on the C9 roster recently. But they were like, Tenacity's the best, dude. Tenacity's such a baller. And in fact, we really did see him. He went like 9-2 or some shit on Fiora during the season. But they couldn't play around him. They need to either play down expectations so that the players can grow, or continue to play these, but you know, actually play around the team.
Right.
Play around him. Like your draft resources, your whatever. You need to be like Yike and LEC, or even last year, Blackid and Targamas or whatever. Like they were so rookie and they were played around so hard that they look like stars and they could grow. I mean, Blackid's not playing anymore, but at least during his season, he was looking really good. I really don't like that they hyped him so hard. He had too much hype for a rookie.
I definitely agree. He had Tenacity had too much hype, but I actually think he's really good. I think we did see a lot of progression from him throughout the split, so I don't want to be on him too hard because I definitely think we saw him get a lot better. My main issue personally is I think Tenacity can't shine because of Bjergsen, and I don't want to sit here and be on a Bjergsen hate train, but
No, I
it's
was
pretty
thinking that.
simple where it's like League of Legends is a fairly simple game at its core. You play around mid lane, you win the game. Mid lane's everything. Mid tower, mid prio, gives you access to the entire map. If your mid laner doesn't want to play a certain style, it does not open up the map. You can't have a strong top lane and a strong bot lane at the same time if your mid laner just wants to play a zillion type champions or a zillion type playstyle. It just doesn't work. Unless you're just a much better team at all fronts, it really doesn't work. There's a reason like SKT can pull it off. It's because they're just that much better. 100 Thieves isn't that good yet, and if you have a choice between playing super strong bot lane around Doublelift or super strong top lane around a rookie, I think there's not really much debate here. You're obviously going to play around bot lane and say, hey, you're on tank duty now, especially if it's just not working. If your jungler can't play the game he wants to play, and your mid lane, because your mid laner is playing how he wants to play, which is a very safe style, which does work, but not the way that the game is really the best way of playing the game, and they're not good enough like RNG to play the game differently than everyone else. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. I think that's definitely 100 Thieves' problem is they're not good enough. Like they're like, I mean,
that's it right there. They're just not good enough, bro.
Yeah, they're not good enough. 100%. Like 100 Thieves, they try to play a really hard comp. I mean, playing these like very like kite backy comps is super hard. Like there's not a lot of engage in their comps that they're picking. Like they're playing to get ahead in laning phase, and then the team fights. Like I said in a couple podcasts ago that like the best kind of comps out there are the ones where you start the fight, you just barf all your cooldowns before the enemy team can do anything. Yep. And for 99% of league players, that's true. But of course, when you get to SKT, right? I bet you if you gave SKT this Jinx Thresh bot lane, which I think they actually played in their KT Rollster series, they can smurf it because they land all their stuff and they kite really well, and they don't get jumped on, they don't get 5-man flanked and all this stuff. The comp's really hard to play, but if you can play it really, really well, which I think is what 100 Thieves was like theory crafting, like I totally see that as like a Nuke Duck, like former Origin coach type of guy. Theory craft wise, right? Their draft is super good because you can kind of AFK like lane swap strat your way to a really early Dragon Soul, and then enemy team engages on you. You have all the right tools to peel, but like if you suck, you're an NA. Like you're just better off just throwing your bodies at the enemy and just like barfing your cooldowns. So I really felt like that's what FlyQuest did exactly. That's what CLG tries to do. A lot of teams are just, that's what they opt into. It's much simpler, much easier. In terms of the rookie stuff, I don't know. I got a lot of things like I don't want to see Tenacity. Okay, I think Buzio is fine. I think they just need to opt into that. Buzio wants to engage. Like don't give him Thresh. Like, he can't land a freaking hook. Give him Nautilus. It's so much easier to land hooks. Give him Blitzcrank. He actually smurfs his engages. But, like, for Tenacity, like, he started... Okay, this is how the week started, okay? Thursday, FlyQuest vs. 100 Thieves, Game 1. Okay, Scion... Okay, Impact and Spica are invading on the top side of 100 Thieves, right? And they're on Vision. They're on a ward. Closer spots them in the river. And... Tenacity is in the bush, okay? And he walks out of the bush at FlyQuest to auto them as Cho'Gath, and he loses all his HP, and he has to run away. Like, that's how the game started. So, I don't know, like, that's like a bronze level play. That's like he's not, his head is not in the game. He's choking. Like, you don't just start running at people 1v2 as a Cho'Gath level 1. Like, what was that? And then he's had so many of those plays this weekend. So, I mean, I think it's a bit of a nerves thing, but I also think, like, for Tenacity... Like, it's just not a good fit for this team. I think he's a rookie, and he should still see play on some team. But for this team, it's like this team desperately wants a stable top laner. He is not a stable top laner by any means. He wants to play volatile matchups. He wants to play volatile champions. He does not, like, it feels like he never learned how to play tanks. Like, he never positions well in team fights for tanks. He doesn't really take care of his own lane very well, so... I think it's a mismatch in terms of play styles. I mean, I'm also going to comment this with, like, Team Liquid, too. Like, you can't have 5 people who all want to make the big plays and engage. Like, you can't have both Summit and Harry wanting to go in and make the big plays and int, right? You just need, like, 1 or 2 of those guys. And I think for like 100 Thieves, like they have closer, they have Buzio to like make the crazy plays, and then Tenacity is like trying to play a weak side like top lane tank that like plays very resourceless, and it's just not his fit. So
Yeah.
um,
And that's
maybe
what I
they
mean
could,
though. And see,
yeah,
that's what I mean, like, because you look at the stark difference between, and then we'll move on because I know we're spending about 25 minutes on 100 Thieves, but
they're the most interesting, I
yeah,
think. But yeah,
I mean, but think about it, right? Like with Cloud9, Eminez, right? They put him that first game Victor, just got destroyed, right? I'm not saying he can't play Victor, but he was known for more of like LeBlanc, carry type, assassin type mid laners. And very next game, they give him a comfort pick. They give him something that he can do. And sure enough, it starts to look better for him. I'm not saying that all his games have gone well, but they were at least willing to give him, hey, this is what you're known for. This is pretty much why we got you here, is not to really play the safe, mage type pick, scale later type thing. I mean, he can play that, we've seen it. But with Tenacity, I go on to say that that's not his fault, in a sense that he's being forced to play these champs. I'm not saying he shouldn't learn them. He should, and hopefully he's learned something from this. But if you're known as playing this type of champion pool, you bring him up because this is kind of how he plays. But then all of a sudden you're like, hey, you know what? We don't want you to play that way, though. We want you to play this whole new style. Like, to me,
no,
like,
it's 100%. Yeah, not
like what
it sucks.
with Alistair, like what we were saying, you were like, what would you rather play? Through a veteran like Doublelift bot lane or through a rookie Tenacity, and you said most definitely Doublelift. I would just go to say the opposite, because Doublelift's a veteran. He knows how to play, like he should know how to play. At least hold his lane or not fall too far behind if resources have to go other places in order to let a newer player shine.
Yeah,
Here's my
really, okay, you can't really do that in this meta though, because top lane like as just like a role in this meta is like just kind of a vacuum right now. It kind of sucks, and then bot lane is just super OP. So I would agree in other metas for sure, but I think right now it's pretty hard
I
to
wouldn't
do.
say like only through bot lane, but you see the other
Yeah, I mean
teams.
mid lane too. Yeah.
Well, not just that, but what I'm saying is that you just don't want all the pressure to be on bot lane, which is 100 Thieves. This is like 100 Thieves of old, like the level 3 dive bot lane. That was like every time, right? Like it's like you conquer that strat, it's done. There's absolutely no pressure anywhere else. And we saw that a closer was kind of that pressure reliever, but he was gone. So what I'm saying is that with top lane, if you can provide some relief of the pressure or have closer play towards that side so that we can get towards their top side jungle or whatever to invade, put pressure in that way, and Doublelift kind of play a little less resource heavy. All I'm saying is that Doublelift has the expertise and knowledge and experience to be able to still be effective in that sense, so that a rookie top laner can have a little bit of that play style that he's comfortable with. Because all I'm saying is that he is a rookie. Like, you can't just throw him out there and say, here it is, and you got to play this way, so that we could feed our veterans. It's like, I'm going to basketball, but it's like Allen Iverson refusing to come off the bench. It's like, dude, like Russell Westbrook, more recent, refusing to come off the bench. Like, yes, you're a superstar. You can still score. He still gets his triple doubles, but you're not effective in the starting lineup. You are much better suited coming off the bench.
Guys. Those guys are so cool.
You know what I'm talking about, Mitchell.
Yeah,
Come
I
on
know
now.
those.
Yeah, I see you
totally.
Googling, right? I see you Googling them right now.
I've already forgot the names. I don't know what to Google.
What I'll say, League Dad, my counterpoint is it's also just a lot easier to play through bot lane in the first place.
Yeah, that's
true.
Yeah.
You're just playing through 3 players. You're playing through your jungler, your support, and your AD carry. And because your AD carry is one of the best, is the best player on your team, I would argue, and still one of the best in the league, in my opinion. Like,
true, yeah.
That's just it's just an easier way to play the game. It's a more consistent way to play the game. And sure, I think when I think of Tenacity, I think of a really good Fiora Aurelia player. That's how I think of Tenacity, and sure, he can play them really well. I've seen him do it on and off stage. He had a really good Fiora game, but it's at the same time, it's like, okay, well, you're banking on him being able to split push, have really good teleports. You're giving up dragons, which is already a win con, which is something you lose out on if you're not playing for bot lane. It's a much harder game, and your top laner does have to be really good. I think Tenacity's good. I don't think he's that good yet to be able to permanently win side lane against the likes of Impact.
True. Yeah. No, I see that. Yeah.
And there's also just like, this is a brand new team. Like, there's 4 out of the 5 people are new to this org. 5 all of them are like haven't played with each other ever or in a long time. And then C9 though they've kept 4 out of the 5 players. Eminez is very easy to slot in. I think you also look at like just other teams that they're playing, like Golden Guardians. It's like, yeah, a lot of them are new, but they're all veterans. Same with FlyQuest too. It's like, yeah, Ayla's new, but like the other ones are like veterans, kind of. Okay, well, I guess FlyQuest hasn't really been playing with each other, but they're like absolutely insane veterans,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
They're like
good.
crack
They're good.
veterans.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
So it's like I don't know. Okay, so I was hyped for them, but I feel like you can't feel that bad for this 100 Thieves team, right?
I don't. No, I
Like
don't.
they kind of struck higher than a lot of people thought they were going
Yeah.
to strike.
Yeah.
And then they get into playoffs and they kind of shit the bed. Like they had one strategy, they pivoted towards it super hard, were super arrogant and adamant on playing that one strategy, and they didn't want to go back to their, Kaisa Zaya stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever. I mean, I think it didn't work out for them, but like they have so much stuff they had to work on that like, yeah, I mean, Tenacity doesn't know how to play side lane at all. Neither does Bjergsen though, right? So when none of your players know how to play side lane, it's like, yeah, shit, Fiora is gonna look bad because Fiora like split push and stuff. As much as it is the top laner needs to be good, like the entire team needs to be on the split push. Like we don't fight, we don't get caught out. Like this one dude is sitting by himself, and we 4 are like don't die, right? Like that's hard to do on a new team. It's hard to do when Buzio on Thresh always wants to get and engage. Closer always wants to fight. Like, to me, honestly, this team, like, they should have just stuck with Zaya Kaisa, and they should have just stuck with all the hard engage in the freaking world. Like, I don't know, they try to do kite back, too hard to do. New team, just go fight, just get in there. Like, FlyQuest was not even playing that well. Honestly, FlyQuest in their 3-0 looked pretty garbage. Like, they were getting, like, completely macroed by 100 Thieves, and they were just winning fights because 100 Thieves didn't know how to play their team fights and their champs well enough.
Yeah.
So,
well, I just don't want the Ablazeolive treatment to another rookie. Honestly, like whether he goes to another team so he can shine or given a chance. That's all I want for our rookies. Not just him, but any rookie.
They are buffing bruisers, okay. Whatchamacallit, Death Dance is getting its CDR back, so we very well see that, like, if we were going to see Aatrox in this meta with all the tanks in top lane, like, oh my god, like, when they buff Death Dance, like, we're going to see Aatrox. And then, you know what, meta will be good for Tenacity again, but I'm just going to be honest, like, for players like Dokla and Tenacity and, like, Summit and stuff, like, this was, like, the worst meta for them. It turned to a very tank-centric top lane and a very weak side top lane. So, I mean, that's just how it goes. This is Impact, like, Kingdom, so...
And he has been ruling. He has been ruling in that top lane. All right.
So it's like a bit of like unlucky, but also like they just suck in general. So what do you expect?
Yeah. Let's move on from 100 Thieves. As much as I love them, we spent 30 minutes on them. And
Oh, last thing. Closer. Oh my God, learn more than 2 champions. Like what the hell, dude? All right, sorry.
Okay. Yeah. No, I think we hammered that point. Let's go to the other team that got eliminated. CLG. I honestly thought, so here's my just quick thoughts. I think they're a good matchup against C9. I think they, whether they scrim together, it looks pretty obvious, but I just think when they play each other, I think C9 is actually a good match for CLG. Like, I think CLG actually pushes C9, whether it's play styles or they just know their individual matchups well, their tendencies. I just think every time they play C9, it's going to be a banger, one way or the other. And when they played against EG, it was a totally different story. And I think that's the same. I think that's my take, from the last thing I see from CLG is that, yes, they're super inconsistent, but I think it's more of like they just know the style, on C9. It's like different boxers who one might be better than the other, but for some reason when they play this guy who might not be as good, they just know each other's style and it makes for an exciting match either way. So I'd love to see more C9 CLG matchups. I think that'd be fun. But what are your thoughts on CLG making their exit? The most consistent, inconsistent team.
For CLG, once again, we got excited. It happens every time. I mean,
League
Dad ruined it.
I did. I know. Oh, damn it. That's my bad.
So, yeah, I mean, the obvious things, Dokla was forced onto tank duty when, he has been really good.
He looks so bad on Sion.
Yeah, it just felt like, okay, the question I want to pose to the podcast is, I have one question I want to pose, but what I'll say about CLG is, historically, ever since Cena came into the league,
C9 was literally like 25-2 or 3, whatever, in their first split, and CLG was one of the only teams to take like a win off, or like the only team to put up a fight, right? In C9's dominant splits, or even in their not dominant, for some reason, even when CLG is garbage, like 9th place, 10th place, they'll still put up a fight. I don't know what it is between these orgs, but they do have a rivalry. It's just never been pushed on the broadcast because it was always CLG versus TSM, no matter how bad the matches were game after game. So I'm fine if they push this narrative. I think after they lost to C9, they gave it their all at the hardest team, and then they just they got destroyed by EG. Like, it was a bad matchup, and it's also just like they had no heart or soul left. I think they were just out of juice. My question to the podcast, you guys can talk about your stuff anyways, but the question to think about is this CLG staying together? This is a year and a half with the same roster. Do you think anyone needs to change it, and who?
I think they stay. I don't really see a major reason to change. I think we're seeing growth. I think they are getting better. They're making improvements like internally. I would rather see this team stay together because I don't know I don't see any glaring weakness in like a specific player. I think the team all is solid players. I think they play well together. I think there's just I think it's just like overall things that they screw up as a team. I don't think it's like a specific player who's constantly running it down.
I'll disagree a little. I do think Dokla runs it down a lot.
Yeah, I was thinking
like, he does not know how to play Sion.
Luger ran it down a couple times too. But,
that was my bad. I'll take that one. I talked him up a lot last
Yeah,
podcast.
you did. That's your fault.
Listened.
Everyone runs it down. It's just like I feel like they're consistent enough that there's no real reason to replace anyone, especially if they didn't do it after last year. I don't know why they do it between splits. Maybe after summer. But
yeah, maybe after summer. Probably not during spring in the middle. It's like I feel like that's a maybe throwaway. But I could definitely see at the end of this year if they don't like do anything special like miss worlds or something. But I mean, this team is just like they're like full solo queue. I swear to God, like they actually have really good early games and they have a lot of strong early game plans. Like I feel like their first 15 to 20 minutes are super solid, and they're always contentious, right? I mean, they flip a lot of things still, but I mean, sometimes it's league, right? Sometimes you got to flip things and you mess up and it doesn't go your way. But for the most part, I think a lot of their calls are fine. It's just Dokla is usually kind of like not on the same page as his team. But then once you get past the 20-minute mark, like this team, like they just lose their mind. They are absolutely bananas, like full pedal to the metal. I don't know if they have macro rather than they're alive and there's something to fight for. So they just fight. Like, they will fight for anything. They will engage for anything. Like, all of them are just, like, hiding in bushes, waiting to attack somebody. I kind of love it. It's like, hilarious to see what'll go, because even in the 3-0 loss against EG, like, a lot of those games were really close, because they're just all fiestas. Like, everything looks close when it's a complete fiesta. So, I mean, I like that team for that. Yeah, Luger, he had a really rough series. He was really just mispositioned, and I said in the last podcast that he like plays this very aggressive line, but he still like lives and makes it okay. He was doing it so well in the regular season, where like he makes a play and he kills a bunch of people, and he has like the perfect angle to like flash forward or gale force in. But this series or this weekend, he was just like flashing and gale forcing like right into people's faces and just dying. Yeah. So like he missed the angles. I mean, it's hard, right? It's like your whole team has a very like aggressive inty kind of play style where like it works or don't. And you know, you're at ADC, you don't really get a lot of peel. People are just diving in, right? So you just feel like you're Xayah and you just have to dash in with them. But you know, there's other ways they could play it. But hey, that's their play style. You know, he's on board with it. I don't know. It's still a really fun team to watch. Fun team to watch. I think for C9, CLG, C9 like goes down to their level for sure. They like punch with them, and they're like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just send it. Like Blabber was definitely like, you know what? I'm just sending it. I don't care anymore. I'm in there. I'm Maokai, and I'm dead. But whatever. Like it was pretty fun to watch. I'm not gonna lie.
For sure. Yeah, I think you know. I'm on the same boat as Alistair, or like with changes. I wouldn't make any changes now. I do think though you need during this off time that they have, you really do need to take a hard look at what is making you so inconsistent? I know Kobe mentioned on the dive, he thinks that they overchase into places that they don't have vision. And so maybe that's a thing. I mean, I don't know too much, but whatever it is, they do need to find that thing and really work at it, because I think this coming up summer split is their last chance, honestly. If they don't do anything, or if it looks more of the same, I think it's time to split up. But I don't want to see them split up, because I do think there's potential. Every time we see them win, it's like, oh, like they could do it. Like they actually can do things, and they're really fun to watch. And, you know, for whatever reason, they just can't find that consistency. But I'm hoping that they can find it, because their talent, I think, is there. I think on any given day, you know, any one of them can match up with anybody. It just is a matter of, are they going to show up, or are they going to make a dumb play?
I mean, I want to end on, I think they should replace their bot lane. I think Luger is good, but he's not. If they want to be a top team, he's not good enough. He's done enough in my eyes, in enough big series where I'm just like, what is he doing, dude? Like this
Yeah,
guy,
it is always at the series. Yeah.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
He's really good in regular season, so I get
Yeah.
why they keep him. But Luger Poom, like, it's not enough to be top 2, top 3, and qualify for Worlds or MSI. So I think they get replaced. I think the other 3, I can definitely see why that core is good. It's just like, it's hard to be consistent when your bot lane just drops the ball when it matters the most, and you just lose your soul afterward.
Yeah. Okay. Alistair, do you agree with that? I know you're a big Luger fan, so I just wanted to check in with you.
I don't know. I definitely think he is not as good in playoffs as he was, but I think we kind of got from CLG exactly what we expected. We've kind of been saying they're the bar, they're the skill check. Like, you're good or you're not against, like, depending on how you do against CLG. And honestly, I think you don't have this roster expecting to win it all. I just don't think anyone's looking at that as like realistically thinking they're gonna win it.
Mm-hmm.
So in my opinion, they actually overperformed considering my expectations. Actually, no, they did about what I thought. Never mind. They made playoffs. They didn't make it far.
Yeah.
But they made that. That's pretty much what I think most people expected. I don't. My issue is, who do you replace Luger with?
Yeah.
I'm
mean,
not saying there's a choice, but
yeah, there's like that's a hard question to ask. But yeah, I mean, I think for Luger, it's like, it does you require replacing? I mean, I would probably give him one more split, right? Just play the year out. But honestly, it's like, I mean, he just needs to improve like a little bit more, right? Honestly, like in these big series, like he's pretty consistent and solid. He just has like those big fumbles that like happen not like at the beginning. Like, he's not getting caught out like randomly on his own. It's like while the fight is progressing, he'll make a mistake like during it.
Yeah.
And like that kind of stuff is just like, I don't know. It's just, you just gotta like play it a little slower. You're an ADC, right? Or you have to have your team play a little slower. Or if you're going all in with your team, you just gotta commit earlier. Because like it felt like there were times where Luger, like, you just needed to commit way earlier to that play that you did, and it would have worked out. Or you should have just like not gone for that, like just like run away, right? And then, but he always just like was hesitant. He didn't know what the call was. So honestly, CLG, my big thing I think for them is like they're lacking like that wise voice that says, okay, stop going in. Okay, definitely go in. Like, this is for sure it. Get the fuck in there. Or like, let's not go in. You know, like they need
the
that
voice of
voice.
Reason. They need the voice of reason.
They do. Because honestly, this team is like, they're like, yeah, go in. But only like 3 out of 5 of them are like super committed. And the other 2 are like, are you guys inting? Oh, you guys are inting. All right, we'll in with you, you know?
Yeah.
And then they go in right after.
All right,
So,
CLG core JJ.
yeah, I mean, well, maybe, I don't know. Not if he puts himself on Lulu.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
I mean, that could be fun.
The way, my personal thing is, for the most part, I don't put a lot of priority on like mechanical misplays. Obviously, if they're super egregious, like certain Malphite ults, then there's problems. But like, okay, you could have played this slower, and you learn from it. That's fine. But if you're doing it consistently and not learning, like certain top laners, that's when we have problems. And I feel like we have seen kind of an ebb and flow from Luger in that respect. So
I mean, sometimes it works out so well, and it's beautiful, and it's like the
Yeah.
craziest thing ever. And
I
other
mean,
times you just think,
when you're playing
yeah,
that very fine edge,
yeah,
it works or it doesn't. Sometimes you click one too many times and you just die.
yeah.
So it's like
Jackie
I think
Love.
I would I
Yeah,
I have a hard time saying I think they should replace their bot lane because I think Poom's really good and I think Luger's really good. Um, but I don't know if they're the best together. Maybe I don't know what it is, but I think getting rid of both of them isn't the
Yeah.
maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see what's on the market for them as well as
Yeah,
time
that's
goes
true.
on.
Like, it's not
move. Of
Yeah.
just
course.
who you should get; it's who you can get.
And
At that
Yeah.
point.
also, like, to all the top laners out there, like, that can't play these tank top lanes, like, dude, like, it's so easy. It is way easier to play Scion top than it is to play Fiora or Camille or Gwen. Like, it is so easy, guys. It's
Dude,
literally like next level brain dead to play Scion top.
I would say it's
They're
easy,
so
but
bad.
it is easy. But I also think that you can be good at that. Like Impact. Impact is one of
Yeah,
the
I mean,
like
you can
people
be
who
good
can.
at it, but right, all it requires is like
Yeah.
some forethought, like a little bit of like prepping in your head. And I guess it's a different skill set, but like it really like demonstrates how like their brain is not like they're not thinking, they're just like acting and playing and like reacting. And like
Yeah.
with like champs like Yone and like Fiora, like that's fine. You just reaction time and you skill check people because your champion is broken as hell. Scion is just like think for a bit. Okay, I'm gonna charge my Q after the CC's done. And you know what? I don't do any damage. I should probably go help my ADC. But like all these motherfuckers just like kill themselves over. I shouldn't have cursed like that. They just kill themselves
Sorry.
over and over again. It's so
Yeah.
frustrating to watch them be bad at Scion. It's such an
mean,
easy champion.
I agree he is very easy, but at the same time, these are likely players who have dropped 4,000 games playing bruisers and maybe like 400 playing tanks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like it's so ingrained in them to play like bruisers where it's much harder to adjust. That's why Impact is so much better on it because like he's played for so long where he also has 4,000 games on tanks. To be fair, probably more. But
Yeah.
like he has that divide where feels comfortable on both where he's playing them so much. Whereas someone like Tenacity, like, yeah, his Cassante and Scion aren't the best, but that's
Yeah.
because he's a Fiora Aurelia player. He's played so much Fiora Aurelia. He's probably played this season like 300, 400 games of those two champions combined and maybe like 20 on tanks.
Totally. Yeah. Well, they gotta learn. They gotta learn.
No, I'm not making
Yeah.
excuses for them not learning. I'm just saying it's a lot harder to make that adjustment. There's a reason why AD
Yeah.
carries don't want to play mages.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
because they've played so much ADC that like why do I want to play Syndra? Why do I want to play Seraphine? Why do I want to play Cassiopeia? They're a really strong bot lane, but just let me play Jinx. Just let me play Kai'Sa. Just let me play Xayah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on then. Let's do this. So our first two winners in the winners brackets, FlyQuest C9. So let's talk about them. You could talk about the performance, either of those teams, and then after we all kind of talk about them and our thoughts on how they perform, let's make our predictions on them since they are doing that. And then after that, we'll go to the lower bracket. So FlyQuest and C9 are there. What would you guys think of their play this past weekend? Do they have what it takes to make it out? And continue in the winner's bracket, and who do you think falls into the loser's bracket? So let me get your thoughts on those two, probably top two teams. I think, again, that's how they ended regular season. That's kind of what it looked like again here. So give me your thoughts on that.
Good news, Vikla is on. Like, yeah, FlyQuest didn't look great in all the games, but no, I think Vikla played way better. Like, he just played like what we expected from him. And that's a huge shift. He also showed that he could play a pretty strong Veigar, or at least a good baiting Veigar. Honestly, the other team misplayed into it. For C9, MNS, I'm still not super comfortable with his play, especially on Cassante on their loss. I'm like, oh, dude, what are you doing? But I mean, Blabber also went like 6-14 and 29, which like scoreboard wise, not great. Play wise, he was all right. I think that C9 hasn't shown enough to make me confident they'll win against FlyQuest, and FlyQuest did 3-0, what was put in front of them, but they also looked a little shaky. I'm more confident in FlyQuest, though. I don't know if we're putting our predictions here now or if we're waiting.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Yeah, I have it 3-2 FlyQuest, and if I'm wrong, then I blessed C9. So you're welcome, Kimmer.
Yeah.
That's my plan.
That's true.
All right, well, I'll be pretty quick with mine. I think C9 wins it. We already last week we saw Cloud9 beat FlyQuest twice pretty handily. I think they do it again. I would say 3-1.
Hmm.
To be fair, Vikla is playing a lot better, so I'll give him that. But again, it is against Bjergsen.
Yeah, I was gonna say it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That was
It's
what I was
like-
gonna say.
it's pretty easy to look good when you're just
It's
kind
a
of
free
like clicking
lane,
minions.
bro.
Yeah,
It's
you're just
actually a
sitting
free
there-
lane.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm playing against Bjergsen. Oh, I'm just gonna pick Veigar in 2 games. It's
just
like
scale,
why bother?
chill. It's all good, man.
Like
Champ's broken.
he picked 2 Bjergsen Kryptonite. He picked 1 roaming champ and 1 champ that just sits there and farms. Like I think it's so I'm Vikla looked good. I will not disagree, but will he look good against a better team who has a better mid jungle plan and better way to play the game, especially
Yeah.
when they know how he plays because they've beaten him 3 times now, I think. So they clearly have an idea of how to play against him.
Yeah, I think that's my issue with FlyQuest too. Okay, I'll give them probably that they have come up with some solid plans in like the last week or so after watching all the playoff series and stuff. But it definitely felt like when they went into the 100 Thieves series, they had a plan for the draft ban phase, and then they kind of had a plan for the invade. But then everything after that was like 100 Thieves was in the driver's seat. They had all the plans, they were making all the moves, and they just like fumbled the ball. And FlyQuest was just there to pick it up. Like FlyQuest to me felt like in their 100 Thieves series, I mean, maybe they weren't trying that hard and they didn't need to plan out because, I mean, it was a pretty easy 3-0. But, like, they didn't seem like they were dictating anything. They were playing, like, very reactively. Like, oh, you guys are going to go through this objective? Okay, you guys are going to set up and we're just going to dive you. We're going to flank you. Like, that's all they had. It's like, you guys set up, we'll just flank you. And you guys are going to do all this lane swap stuff, get a bunch of dragons and get a bunch of plates. Like, I don't know. We don't really have much of a plan, but we'll just team fight better than you. So that's what it felt like FlyQuest was. I will be honest, though. I mean, their flanks and their team fighting is pretty legit. So that's what C9 will have to deal with. But, I mean, C9, I do feel like they're a team that is like a bit of both. They have a lot of those early game plans. They have a lot of interesting ideas in draft. And they can still execute in mid to late game team fights. You know, we still haven't seen, like, this, like, Berserker playing against, like, a really good team in a really close game, like, pop off like crazy. So like Prince, Berserker, this is like, you know, I think the series is really going to be about them, right? There's going to be some back and forth in the early game, probably C9 favored, and then going to be up to some really exceptional team fighting from the ADCs to carry. So we'll see how that goes. I do favor C9 quite heavily, but I mean, I really hope FlyQuest, they prepared some stuff and they came up with something interesting because you can't do the same draft strategy against 100 Thieves as C9, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be scary, right? There's a lot of, like, early game picks that you have to be worried about against C9, but then also you have, like, you know, just, like, the normal stuff, the meta stuff. Like, you got Draven, you got Jace Elise, you got all these crazy junglers that you don't want to give over Blabber. Yeah, C9, I'm going to go 3-2 just for fun. I like 5-game series, so I'm going to go C9 3-2. But I do see it being pretty C9 favored.
Yeah, I think I'm also C9 favored. Kevin, I think you're the only one on the FlyQuest.
Bro,
I mean, you predicted them to win. I know
I'm
that.
the only one who got last week completely right, by the way.
That's true.
I went from like middle of the pack in our prediction race to second place.
Yeah.
1 point away from first.
That's,
so you know what?
But
I'll take
you know
it.
what? That's because I got duped by 100 Thieves. Those motherfuckers.
Most of like
salesman.
Reddit apparently.
My head was still saying FlyQuest, but my heart was still saying 100 Thieves. I did this a lot with
Yeah.
TSM. You guys know this. I can't.
Yeah.
I don't think. Come on
true.
now. You know, so you were right. You were smart. But here's what I will say, okay? If I just look between C9 and FlyQuest, I just think that C9 looks better. Like when you look at matchup by matchup. Okay, like I just
They
think
just look better.
like no,
I agree.
like you look at
6 and 14 Blabber looked really good. Yeah.
well, no, but
I
here's what I'll say. I
there.
say Blabber, but Spica has had some doozies too. So I would say that I think Spica and Blabber can be, if anything, I don't think there's going to be a comparable like a huge gap there. I don't think there'll be a huge gap in top lane. I do think that there's potential. I think the mid lane is going to be who's going to mess it up the most. Is it going to be Eminez going 0-10 again on Jace? Is it going to be Vikla running it down? And here's where my X factor is. It's the bot lane. In fact, I think it's in Sven. I think Sven, can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think he's the better support here, over Isla. I think he's more versatile. I think he can play a bunch of different things. And I think that him and Berserker are just going to, I don't necessarily think Prince will fall way behind, but I think that the two of Cloud9's bot lane can get a significant advantage, in my opinion. And I think that in the end, barring that Eminence just doesn't run it down, I think, that's where the edge will be, in my opinion.
That's
so Kevin's cringing. Yeah. He's cringing.
Fair.
He's cringing.
I mean, it's the same for all of them, really. There was a lot of running it down, honestly. Over this weekend.
I'm hoping we see some running it down just for the entertainment value. You know what I mean?
I mean, there was running it down from both FlyQuest and C9 in their series.
Yes.
So,
Yes,
anything could happen.
I'm expecting it.
I do really agree with the Sven point. Like, Sven actually plays the map. Like, he actually gets out of lane, and he also, has a wide champion pool. I swear to God, Ayla is just Corey J Light. Like, when he's on Thresh and Recon, he plays the map. He's all around. He's playing with his jungler. He's aggressive. But, Prince is kind of left on his own. But when he plays Lulu, that guy is just, actually AFK, and then Prince is just 1v9ing on Zeri. And, I just don't think you can do that against really good teams. Ayla, I mean, if you can find that middle ground where he's, playing Lulu, but actually playing the map at the same time, as, a safe enchanter has to play, I think FlyQuest can really have find a big advantage. Because support.
I do like the versatility that Sven shows too. I mean, even the fact that he was an ex ADC, he can bust out the Ashe support, and play pretty well. You got the Soraka, you got Renata. I mean, he's busting out champs that other teams just aren't bringing out, and so I think that does give them a little bit of an edge there. So I'm going to say 3-2. I think it'll be close. I hope it's close because the great thing is that even if one of them loses, there's a potential to see the rematch. Yeah. So I'm just hoping we get 5 games just so we get 5 games, more league to watch. So I think it'll be interesting either way. I will say this, and we won't predict the losers bracket from next week, but I do think that whoever loses this will make it back to the finals. I do think it's going to be these two teams in the end.
Right, because there's another team. What was the other team called? Oh, Golden Guardians.
Golden Guardians. And there's Evil Geniuses. We didn't forget about that.
We didn't talk about them either. Oh my god.
Yeah, so that's the losers bracket. We do need to talk about them because I will say Evil Geniuses looked much better. Golden Guardians looked about the same to me. So let's talk about them and then predict their matchup too, because that is the losers bracket. I will just say that whoever wins here, I don't think is going to make it any further. That's just my thoughts. But let's talk about EG and Golden Guardians, your thoughts on them, and then predictions.
I think EG looked a lot better. I already told you guys before that EG, they were sick. Now that they're not sick, they look great. They look sick. Haha. But they look a lot better than they were before. I think that they actually have a chance of upsetting to the finals. They're not favored, but I think it's close. I think they're 40-60 favored over.
Don't underestimate them.
Bracket.
Yeah.
Yep. For Golden Guardians, good job, Stixay. You have another career-defining play. He's had 4 or 5 throughout his career, but this is the only one in the last 4 years. And it was over Doublelift. So honestly, poetic. They kept mentioning the Reddit threads. 2016 was the last time Doublelift didn't make playoffs or whatever, and that was 2016. So great.
Didn't win,
I would think it was a sick play. Honestly, what was Doublelift doing? He
was trolling.
He's still probably the GOAT. I used to think Bjergsen myself, very publicly, but it's shifted to Doublelift now that he's back and he's played well still after 2 years of being up. But he has more career-defining lost plays. He has more Jensen plays than Jensen does, honestly. And Jensen just gets memed harder because he's less liked. That's the fact. So that's my take. I think EG is the better team between the two, but it should be close, 3-1, 3-2. I think 3-1 EG.
I'm gonna go 3-2, but pretty much the same reason as Kevin. Don't really have much else to say, but at the same time, I would love to see FlyQuest Golden Guardians in the finals. It won't happen. it just won't.
Yeah.
But I would love to be there because I'm gonna be there for.
That's your all in anyways, right? Golden Guardians. So. Hey,
yeah,
somebody-
it
it
would,
was.
bro. It would be so entertaining. I don't even care who wins that point. That would
Yeah,
that
that's
would just
right.
be such a great timeline. It won't happen. It'll be Cloud9 FlyQuest in the finals, 99%. But damn, that would be entertaining.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
would.
Yeah, it could happen. I mean, this whole that whole last series from Golden Guardians felt like they had no idea like what the meta was, what they were good at. They copied FlyQuest's ban strategy,
Mhm.
and then like they played some games. They picked Jinx, Thresh, Xin Zhao. They're copying 100 Thieves,
Yeah.
and then they decided to play Zeri, and they're like, oh, we forgot. Our ADC is insane at Zeri. Let's just play that. I mean, even Huhi played Blitzcrank right after he got shit on by Buzio's Blitzcrank. I was like, you guys are just copying everybody's homework. Like, I mean, hey, that's how League of Legends works sometimes, right? You just copy them, you don't know why it works, you play it, and then you figure it out later.
Oh.
And that's kind of what they did. So I hope that they can like prep and like improve over this week and like use that to get a better sense of what they want to do. But that's just been their identity. From going like 7-0 in the regular season to a big meta shift to just not being the same team at all, completely like losing footing. So, I mean, just one more week. Is it enough time for them? If it is, I think, yeah, they could upset EG, but I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to find that like that thing that works for them in this week. So I do predict EG. Honestly, EG is a bit of a lackluster team for me. I feel like they are solid. They are a good team. They have good early games, right? And their mid games and late games are still kind of suspect. But like, God, FBI, even in their 3-0 CLG series, I felt like FBI was just such a non-factor. Like, he's just like has the most deaths in the team in the game one. In game three, I felt like he did his flash Gale Force Aphelios play when like the game was almost like falling away from like I felt like there were so many moments for him to make a big Aphelios play, but he waited till the end of the game to do it. So I mean, EG just feels like they're like a lesser version of they were last year. So I think they're still a good team, but it's like it's like topping out at top three. So yeah, I agree with League Dad's overall like picture of like C9 Fly are probably just going to rematch in the finals.
Yeah.
EG is probably going to be GGS. Maybe has a close game against the team that drops, but not be able to make it far enough. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think I'm EG favorite in this series for sure. I think there's just a bigger difference in and skill wise. I think EG now that they're back healthy definitely looks like the better team for sure. And so I really don't think Golden Guardians has a chance. I'm going 3-0 EG.
Yeah, that could be it.
I think it could be.
It.
Yeah, I could be. And on the FBI thing, I mean, I think I agree in the sense that when I take a look at the eye test and watch him, he to me is almost like a Bjergsen, but better in a sense that he's consistent. He does a lot of damage. He had,
his stats are
super
good.
high. His stats are always good. It's kind of like Bjergsen. His stats are always fine. But when you watch him in the game, I get what you're saying. Like I just don't see the impact he's having, so to speak. Like he just doesn't. But again, like I don't know if that's just maybe he's just good and he's just not the highlight player. Like he just does the fundamental stuff. I think he's solid. I actually think I would rather see this bot lane against C9's bot lane. Over FlyQuest bot lane because I think this is the more stable
they
duo.
Would do much better in laning phase. They even get lane advantages.
Right. So that's where I see that. But I totally get what you're saying. I think in this matchup for sure they win. But I don't think they're at the caliber of either C9 or FlyQuest. So that's kind of where I stand on that. So that's what I got. 3-0. EG beating Golden Guardians, but I
also
like
Licorice has to play against a real top laner too.
I know.
It's gonna be hard.
It's gonna be tough, man.
Yo, why is Malphite OP? His W does so much damage. Oh my god, Someday was murdering people on Malphite.
I'm glad he picked it too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, bring it out. It's fine.
Champ's not balanced. Yeah. Someday
watch Bronze Zodia just get played over and over. Like you see Blitzcrank, you see Malphite. Like they just come out of the woodwork.
Yo,
turns out that NA pros can't beat them. Actually, all pros, not just NA. Malphite's being played elsewhere.
Yeah, Malphite is being played elsewhere. Also, it's just like, ARAM special. Like, I feel like we're getting a lot of ARAM meta. Also want to talk a little fun, little snippet about item builds. A lot of people, like Blabber especially, was doing like the super early anathemas or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we see some Thresh get Zeeks. We see some people do Knight's Vow and stuff. I think all these items that I just listed are super OP, like super broken. Anathema's Knight's Vow, Zeke's Herald, and to a lesser extent, like Evan Shroud and stuff. Super niche, but very, very broken in their good situations because they're so cheap, and their values are like really high. Like Knight's Vow gives some of the most insane numbers that you can give, like 10% up to 20% damage reduction on an ADC. Absolutely cracked. Insane stats and numbers for the cost. Anathemas, 30% damage reduction or whatever, or 30% tenacity increase or whatever the numbers are. It's just a crazy item. Zeke's Herald, I think, is also super underrated. It does a ton of damage for very cheap. So I'm glad to see that our NA players are cooking. All those items were built this weekend, and it was kind of hype. It was kind of poggers. So I like that. I like that we're cooking. I don't see that in Korea.
The one game that 100 Thieves won with Thresh was with the Knight's Vow. Every game they lost, they didn't build it.
Oh,
Interesting.
Yep. That'll do it. Also, I really don't like the Shirelias on Thresh. Like,
I don't get it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like the worst thing in the world, but you're only using it for the active, right? Like, maybe you have Font of Life, or maybe you have like your W shield gives movement
he
speed,
lanterns,
like...
and then they run away from the lantern quicker.
Yeah.
That's how Double died, guys. Okay, fine.
It.
He got the lantern speed up, went to the minion, and died. That's how they lost. Shirelia lost.
Yeah.
He couldn't click on the lantern. He autoed the minion wave instead, and he died.
No, it wasn't a couldn't click on a lantern. The lantern was gone for like half a second. He walked more. He moved commanded forward.
No, in his brain lag, he thought the lantern was there. It was too delayed.
It's
boomer.
It was rough, man. But yeah, I don't like the Shirelias. Honestly, like, nobody play Thresh unless your name is Vulcan, like in LCS. Honestly, it was so like who he's Thresh was also garbage. Like, okay, you can play Thresh too. I don't even know if I want to see Sven's Thresh. Like, I don't think I want to see that. Like, just keep it to Ayla, keep it to Vulcan, Huhi, Sven. You guys stick to the stupid Ashe support. You know, like, do not touch Thresh. He's too good of a champion.
Yeah.
But
okay.
yeah.
Well, you guys got any final thoughts as we begin to wrap things up? Any final tidbits you want to share?
I gotta say, it was a weird weekend. I think it was a very strange weekend. A lot of strange drafts, a lot of strange situations. I did love it. I will say though, this is the best time of the year for League of Legends. We got great best of fives in LCK, great best of fives in LPL. And LEC is hype because they just finished their regular season on Monday.
That's crazy.
And you know what it means? This is why top 8 feels so bad, because the regular season is long as hell, and then all that matters is the best of fives, right? I don't want summer to happen because it's going to be like all these best of ones that don't mean anything. Then top 8 playoffs. I genuinely believe League of Legends is best played when it's just best of fives, high stakes all the time.
Yeah.
It is more obvious than it has ever been in League of Legends, with LCK changing their format, LPL being hype, LEC format changes. It's like LCS format is honestly a dinosaur. It's just not even.
It's gonna change. There's no way. There's so much pressure to make changes.
It has to change. I mean, I just know this MSI is gonna be sick. Like this MSI with double elims is gonna be so sick. We need 3 international tournaments, shortened regular seasons, double elimination bracket, best of fives. That's the formula. It's so obvious. And remove. Oh god, I really hope Yumi's not enabled for MSI. Yeah, like Jesus
I
Christ,
think it can be right.
I don't think so.
Yumi, so.
But Riot is always a little, they're gonna do something. They love the cat for some reason.
They do.
So,
they sure do.
Like Meteos was saying, I was watching the Coach stream a lot. Coach stream's great, guys. If you haven't checked it out, 100% check it out. Meteos was saying like, we're gonna think back in 3 years from now when Yumi gets removed, like, why the hell did it take so long? Like, why was that in the game for that? Remember when Tom Kench W was on like a 20-second cooldown eating people for free? That thing played
and
pro
he got
play.
movement speed if it was an ally?
No, man.
Yeah.
It's a Kali Shroud lasting for over a year.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, but Tom Kench was like 3 or 4 years, guys. Like
Yeah,
that
but one let you dive turret, and the other one was just a swallow.
true.
It
I
was-
think Tom Kench was way more egregious than Akali. I think Tom Kench was.
I disagree.
I strongly
No,
disagree.
no, no, I mean, I think it's Akali Shroud for 1 year, Tom Kench for 3 or 4 years. I
Okay,
don't know.
yeah, if we're
I
bouncing
just,
that way, but one was just like
yeah.
it should never have lasted past 2 patches.
What,
I
it
mean,
should,
yeah,
it
both
should have never been in the game. Why did Akali have a micro stun?
Yeah, both
Oh,
are
yeah.
bullshit. No, both.
Anyways,
okay, hey.
we can go on forever.
I
Leave it for
was-
a patch episode.
I was comparing the grievances with the length as well. I think
Okay,
the Tom
that's fair.
Kench with its length was the most egregious. That's where I'm going to be at. But clearly, Yumi is the most egregious. That thing's the biggest abomination of all time.
Yep.
But yeah, yeah. Don't bring back Yumi. 3 tournaments, double elim, short regular seasons, and we have the perfect game, guys.
There you go.
Perfect
we
game.
fixed League of Legends, boys.
We fixed League of Legends.
it.
Also, we're bringing back Death Dance. It's probably not a good idea, but I have not liked the game as much since it got changed. I
Alright.
cannot wait to get my ability haste back. So
Yeah.
I'm down.
Give
for
it,
that too.
give it the ability haste back, but remove,
It's coming
make it,
back. It's coming
make it
back.
physical only.
Sure, I don't care. Yeah, give me my ability haste back. It's honestly more important. It's like way better item to have ability haste than not. Like it is unbelievable.
Mhm.
If it's physical only, I still think the item will be OP. So
No,
yeah.
it will be, but if you build Death's Dance against a mage and they're just never going to do anything to you, it doesn't matter how much pen they have because they just build
Yeah.
you build Death's Dance and Maw and they're just unkillable.
Yeah. Also,
Mhm.
Catalyst nerf by 200 gold. Oh, just a godsend for mid lane assassins. I can finally play Zed and Akali again. Like you cannot play against a 1100 gold Catalyst. But yes,
Okay.
good
Revert
changes,
Vanguard.
Riot.
Revert
Alright.
Vagar buffs, please.
Oh yeah, Veigar's just getting his AP ratios nuked, man. It is sad. That's a bummer. But it's okay. I hate the
I don't mind.
All
right.
Anyways,
That's it. Thanks
That's it,
again to my awesome co-host Kevin, Mitchell, Alistair for always sharing their wise thoughts. But until next time, enjoy your climb on the Rift. Try not to be too toxic. And we'll see you all in the next episode. Peace.